So we're then going to talk about Afropessimism in today's video. What is it? What does it mean? And how does it relate to the experience of being Mukimne? So Afropessimism is a concept that was started by Johann Galtung, hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly, that ultimately examines the structural conditions of blackness. So I like to explain the concept of Afro-pessimism and use the mirror principle. So think back to our colonial era where you ultimately had modern society at the top, and then you had black people that had to work as the slaves at the bottom. And so their lived experiences as people were then negated as they had to then build the city for the colonizers, etc., etc. Now, within this historical context, we start to realize from the perspective of gender nuanced people that that cultural archetype, that cultural hierarchy still permeates our culture. And Mukimne are then ultimately on the opposite ends of that spectrum. So, under this paradigm of black traditionalism, you ultimately have the traditionalists who are ultimately a part of the ruling class, that they get to decide who is and who is not culturally intelligible, and all black people, all manners of blackness that are then deemed inferior are then relegated to this place of social death. Social death being that they are stripped of their social recognition and they are subjected to violence and exclusion within the community. Johann Galtung, the he talks about a couple of types of violence. We have classic violence, which is ultimately bodily harm and bodily injury. But we also he talks about poverty, which was the deprival of basic needs, repression, which was the deprival of your human rights as a person. And then thirdly, he talked about alienation, which is the deprival of your higher needs. Things like access to healthcare, access to medical care, access to adequate housing, etc., etc. And so, due to the cultural motifs that govern our lived experiences as black people born in gender nuanced bodies, you'll often find that it is black gender nuanced people who are ultimately structured at the bottom, who are often left to then live a life of poverty because the traditionalists deem our experiences as people to then be inferior. That within this new era of consciousness, there's this understanding that we are now the untouchables. We are the leftover blacks. That we are the people that happen to fall outside the realm of cultural intelligibility. And as a result, there is a need for us to then enter a new era of black consciousness, of motherism, of understanding how we need to mother our unmother selves as gender nuanced people, and how we need to do the work to then divest from black male consciousness that ultimately governs our lived experiences and the cultural motifs that govern our lived experiences, and actually formulate our own understanding of ourselves as black people that have nothing to do with the collective.